Hillary Clinton says that Bernie Sanders did not do enough to champion her presidential bid after she won the Democratic primary. And now, in response to a question about her potential 2020 winner, she told the Associated Press that she will do whatever she can to support that person because that wasn't my experience in 2016.
Here to weigh in on the former candidate's comments is Hillary and Bill Clinton's former advisor, Richard Goodstein. He's the president of Goodstein and Associates.
That's
Welcome.
Right. Good to
Great
see you,
to
Richard.
be here. Thanks for having me.
Richard, you're a mainstay on cable television, and we wanted to make sure that we had you here in order to give a view that maybe people don't often hear, which is that you are, I think, staunch, both a supporter of Hillary, but also in the view that Bernie would lose the would lose the national election. Let's talk about the Hillary one in particular. Do you agree with her that Bernie didn't do enough to get her elected?
I went to the Women's March the day after the Trump inaugural, and it was, of course, hundreds of thousands of people. And I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, if you were among these people that badmouth Hillary because you were a Bernie supporter, and maybe you held your nose and voted for Hillary, you probably maybe voted for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, leave. You don't deserve to be here. And I think that Bernie, he'll say he went on planes and he went here and there, but I am convinced to a certainty, I haven't seen it empirically, but nobody will convince me otherwise, that because Bernie badmouthed her the way he did during the course of the primaries, talked about things being rigged, which was delusional. He lost by millions of votes. There was nothing the DNC did, zero, that affected the outcome of that race. And yet he convinced his people that that had happened. And therefore, I think that it cost Hillary dearly. And really, Bernie's gotten off lightly because I think between Comey and the Russians and so forth, Bernie's pretty high on the list of reasons that Hillary didn't win.
Converse view, Ryan.
Do you worry that the leave, you don't belong here approach contributed to why Hillary Clinton lost?
Do I think that people who were protesting at the top of their lungs the election of Donald Trump, who did nothing to keep that from happening, really don't have standing, in my humble opinion, for complaining the way they did? I don't know. That's my answer to your question.
But I mean, did they really do that? Because here's the thing. Why was it so close in the first place? Why wasn't it about her positions on trade, on immigration, on all of why was it so that Donald Trump? Let's buy the argument that Comey could swing the election. Why was it so close? Why was it at a position? President Obama won these states by massive margins just 4 years earlier.
Yeah. So I think if you looked at every political scientist looking at the fundamentals, it's the change after 8 years that the public usually likes, and kind of look at the economics. And basically, the true fundamentals of that election in 2016, that was looking to shape up to be a close election. I understand everybody thought that Hillary was going to win going away because Trump was kind of crazy. But obviously, I think, again, if you look at the fundamentals, that wasn't going to be a lopsided race no matter what.
Sure.
To me, I've always thought that there are some fair things that the Sanders supporters can point to that the DNC did. Partly just the structure of the way the election is. They come out of Iowa in a tie, basically a delegate tie. And the news media is reporting it as, well, now Hillary Clinton has 500 delegates and Bernie Sanders has 20. You're like, wait a minute, I thought they were tied in Iowa. And so anybody who might have been inclined to take a risk on Sanders at that point was like, well, this race is over. And then you can point to the debates being scheduled at the most obscure hours. I don't think there was the type of conspiracy that some people have hinted at, but I do think that Hillary Clinton has had a very hard time kind of reflecting on the campaign in an intellectually serious way. Let's just take the Goldman Sachs speeches, for instance, right? So she knew that she was going to run for president in 2016. She also knew that she and Bill Clinton had more money in their bank account than they could ever spend for the rest of their lives, that Chelsea Clinton could ever spend. Chelsea ended up buying an apartment that is a block long. She could have had a half-block apartment. If she decides, when the invite comes in from Goldman Sachs, we're going to give you $700,000 for these speeches, and she says, I'm announcing my presidential bid in a couple of months. Maybe for the good of the party, the good of the country, this is not the best play at this moment. I know there were advisors in her circle who were very frustrated by the decisions that she and Bill were making in the months leading up to that in the paid gigs that they were able to take. Wasn't there one in Mozambique as well that was very controversial?
What do you make?
Why? Why?
Right. So this litany that was exactly what the Sanders people kind of groveled in. I mean, they just loved talking about that kind of stuff with losing sight of the fact that if Donald Trump won, every economic benefit, environmental benefit, civil rights benefit, social benefit that they had been pushing for decades would be thrown out like that.
Okay,
I mean, they can't believe. I mean, if you look at all the things that Donald Trump has undone that were core aspects of a Democratic agenda, everybody who talked about how long Chelsea Clinton's apartment was really living in a dream world and not looking at the reality of what the choice was.
But so I'm trying to understand what Clinton's thinking would have been then. So she's going to give the speech to Goldman Sachs, and then she's just going to hope that nobody will criticize her for that? This is Goldman Sachs.
I think Hillary Clinton hoped that people would actually look at the issues, not look at who was paying for her speeches. Incidentally, if she had actually gotten employment with somebody, Bernie Sanders people would have complained about that, because God only knows there would have been some investor or somebody on the board who did something abhorrent. No question, okay? So she gave speeches. God, that's horrible. So again, I think she was predicated her campaign on the fact that people would actually look at the issues and what outcomes she would have versus Donald Trump. And if people can't see that clear as day today, sorry.
But no, so let's look at it now in the context of the campaign. Actually, maybe we should spend more time on this. I mean, the Sanders people who have come on, they said, Richard, that she spent, I think, what was it, like 10 speeches, rallies for Barack Obama in 2008. Sanders did like 42. I mean, how do you square that? She didn't work as hard to get Barack Obama elected as he did in order to get her elected, and yet she's leveling all these charges against him in a Hulu documentary. It just seems fundamentally, like Ryan said, unserious and very bitter. I mean, do you think she has a right to be bitter?
For exactly the reason I said.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't take back a word that I said.
Yeah.
I'm sure, again, they
Well, how do you square those stats? I mean, I do think that's a fair stat.
Well,
yeah.
I will go back and research the 10 speeches for Obama. I don't think there was any question that the Clinton machine, such as it was, ultimately basically rallied behind Barack Obama, fundraising, political expertise and so forth, and did put their shoulder to the wheel in every way the Obama campaign asked. If they didn't want Hillary more than 10 speeches, that was on them, not on her. I don't think it was a question of her limiting her access to the public, okay?
Although the only reason that we're talking about this today is because Hillary Clinton lost and Barack Obama won. More supporters of Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primary voted for McCain against Obama than supporters of Sanders voted for Trump in 2016. But Hillary got a pass for that for two reasons. One, Obama won. So that's a shame that it happened, but Obama won, so who cares? Bygones be bygones. And then Obama named, because he won, Hillary Clinton to be Secretary of State. And so every response from the Clinton campaign to criticism from the Obama campaign was, well, Obama clearly didn't care about that because he named her Secretary of State.
Yeah. How is it her fault how McCain voters voted?
Well, why is it
Seriously, in what respect? Well, because he badmouthed her in ways, just like that litany of yours about the length of Chelsea's apartment. Yeah. That, to me, frankly, is untied to the issues that matter in this country. And yet, the Sanders people loved talking about how the speeches and all this money and so forth. And again, I think it got his supporters who bought into free this and free that and overlooked the fact that he called for nationalizing telecom and banks and railroads over the years. That didn't matter to them, because to them, socialism really didn't put them off.
But Richard, she said she basically is the one who put out Jeremiah Wright against Obama. I mean, it was a nasty campaign.
She pushed the photo of Obama in African garb. There were people.
Yeah, her Clinton campaign did. I mean, look, this is all come out from her and her advisors.
That's actually, I think that's not true.
She said in a speech, the white working class needs to rally behind us. It was a very dirty campaign. You can.
Obama wasn't clean either. Let's be clear here.
Her top strategist said, we need to question his Americanness.
Let me tell you what I think happened in the primaries in 2008. Remember, she won that swath of voters from Pittsburgh down through West Virginia, right? Kentucky, Tennessee, which, with all due respect, happens to correspond with people who haven't quite accepted diversity in this country, okay?
Okay.
So Obama was black and she wasn't, and she won those voters. In 2016, Bernie did pretty well. Why? Sure. Because she was the black guy in a sense, right? Because those are people who were kind of intolerant of her, even though Bernie was Jewish. not exactly, again, a crowd that the people kind of tended to kind of know. But I just think there was no coincidence in my mind that Bernie did very well in that same swath that that Hillary had done.
But maybe it had something to do with saying, "quote We're going to put a lot of coal miners out of work."
Well, she
doesn't
didn't
it have a lot of?
She didn't say that until after. Until after.
Sure. I'm just saying, with that terms of sentiment. Final question for you, Richard. You believe that Sanders will go have a McGovern level loss in the
No, I said a Dukakis level loss.
A Dukakis level loss, still pretty bad. Why do you think that?
Because to me, the research done by apolitical political scientists and others suggests that Democrats need to kind of broaden their coalition in a way that Republicans, frankly, don't need to do to win the Electoral College. And to broaden their coalition, look, the Democrats flipped the House not because of Bernie Sanders backed people, but because of moderates, okay? And I think if Bernie Sanders is at the top of the ticket, you can tell Ben McAdams, and we have new Democratic members from Kansas and Oklahoma, goodbye. And I think that the majority for the Democrats in the House is at risk if Bernie Sanders is at the top of the ticket. Because I understand the theory. There's all these people on the left who haven't been excited, and they're going to come out of the woodwork. And Democrats have been having that argument since Jesse Jackson had it with the Democratic Leadership Council in the 80s.
Right.
And I just don't think the evidence shows that the Jesse Jackson or Bernie Sanders position ultimately is a winning one.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see, but the entire Hillary Clinton apparatus was convinced that Donald Trump would suffer
Right.
a wipeout of
Didn't
epic
exactly
proportions too. So
Thank you, Richard.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we'll have you
and we'll
back.
get to talk. We'll get to talk about this the rest of Hillary Clinton's
we
life.
will.
She's not done
sure
talking
that's
about this.
That is absolutely true. All right, coming up, we're going to look at the moment that CNN decided to mock Trump supporters' intelligence, what that says about the media.